Всем привет! Давненько не виделись. Отличный повод у нас сегодня, да? Да-да, не забываем, сегодня крылышки можно получить. Так что ждем-с. Ждем-с. Так, что у нас со звуком? Очевидно, его надо включить. Нам лысый дядька что-нибудь будет рассказывать. Посмотрим, как это выглядит со стороны. Да, отлично все выглядит. Никита, привет, Артем, привет. Ссылочка на Twitch, конечно, есть. Сейчас да, дадим. Только мне придется окошко свернуть. Да, ссылочку на Twitch, давай мы ее прикрепим к трансляшке. Сейчас попробую ее кинуть в чат, но не факт, что она добавится. Ну, Паша, привет, ты как всегда. Ты как всегда оптимист. Сейчас добавлю прям вот оп, ссылочка, ссылочка для крыльев. Не забудьте только, что для того, чтобы получить крылья, у вас должен быть прикреплен PoE аккаунт к Твичу. Ну, наверное, вот так. А что не так? Да нет, все так, все отлично. Я прям даже уже начал забывать, как оно тут все происходит-то. Дал себе небольшой перерывчик, отдых от поешечки. Дабы в новую лигу ворваться с новыми силами. Какие ожидания от лиги? Слушай, я не люблю гадать на кофейной гуще. Единственное, что самое главное, что я хотел сделать, это билдецкий не сразу, если я все-таки буду собирать МФ, какие у меня планы, не сразу его собирать. Сначала все-таки собрать убойный, дамажащий билд, чтобы механику лиги поиграть, если она будет вообще играбельной и полезной, интересной и так далее. Если это не будет что-то типа Каландра или Архнимедиса. Не мобов, а лиги. Абсолютно бесполезный. Поэтому с меня крылья. Блин, надо фритюрницу с дачи забрать, крылышки. Сварганить точно. Ну, слушай, горнило, наверное, да, крафтовая. Все маньячат крафтовой лигой. Все жаждет накрафтить супер-мега вещей, хотя, ну, как по мне, это все очень относительно. Все рыгались на Каландру, которая как будто бы ничего не привнесла в игру, хотя на самом деле отражение бижутерии, ну точнее амулетов и колец пояса там нельзя отражать. Это просто настолько имбовейший крафт, что просто не знаю, мало кто пользовался. Все привыкли бегать с этим, с амулетом с экзархов, да, а кольца, ну я не знаю, кольца тоже. Ну кольца там ого-го пользовались спрос. Ну да, плохо, когда ограничены всего 2 слотами. Если бы вот она могла отражать все шмотки, ну, кстати, блин, вот хорошая тема, отражать все шмотки. Это интересно. Вот тогда билдостроение просто шагнет на новый уровень. Почему-то очень прям крафтовые лиги заходят людям. Хотя игра же, блин, не про крафт, нифига. Игра про убивание мобов. А убивать мобов никто не хочет. Все хотят поменьше кнопочек нажать, чтобы получить супер вундервафлю. Хотя которая как будто бы нужна, чтобы убивать мобов. Но они, когда ее получают, говорят, все, лига говно, лига сдохла, у меня топ-шмот. Я получил ее за месяц, и остальные 3 месяца играть не хочу, потому что лига говно. Ну, как так. Поэтому, что от лиги жду, я уже в Дискорде там ребят спрашивали, да, что, как лига хорошая, нет, отпуск брать нет. Я уже сказал, что лига от лиги особо ничем не отличается. Миллион билдов, не, ладно, 1000 билдов, 1000 способов фарма и миллиарды мобов. Вот это в каждой лиге одно и то же. От того, что это число меняется на 10% в большую или в меньшую сторону, в глобальном смысле ничего не меняется. Поэтому я жду... Да, ничего я не жду, просто... Я жду патчноутов, чтобы сделать лиг стартера, вот чего я жду. Почему ссылка на мой Twitch? Twitch TV, Path of Exile. Почему мой Twitch? Вот. Тут куда? Что там ссылка-то? Как она может на мой Twitch быть ссылка? Когда она просто Twitch TV? Я на Twitch не стал включать, ну потому что у меня там мало совсем народу, и там надо что-то настраивать на... Я же сейчас открою там. В общем, короче. На Twitch я не стал включать. Люди захотят же получить крылышки и включат ее сами. Ну, трансляшка так, я, честно говоря, ну, основная это какой смысл? Так поржать, что там Лысый расскажет, комментировать в чатике, пообщаться, если там будет возможность. Я что-нибудь переведу, не в том плане, что я не переведу, а в том плане, что говорить в параллель с Лысым не вариант, будет каша. Ну, после трансляции можно будет основные моменты обсудить, если у кого там с английским не очень. Ну и вообще, конечно, да. Интересненько, что там они придумали. Что там у тебя, Паша, с работой? Ты в PoE-то будешь врываться? Билдецкий уже выбрал? Релаксирующая музыка. Никак. Кринж тебе выберет билд. Ну, я даже не знаю. Не, я бы очень обрадовался, если бы что-нибудь с барьерчиком сделали, я бы КВДТ дворяночку бы собрал. Ну, что-то 1200 барьера, меня 1700-то пугало. Хотя, в общем, люди бегали. Я просто не хочу собирать ее в топ-версии на ледяных заклинаниях, потому что, блин, глаза вытекут. Я хочу на молнии собрать. Так, для удовольствия. Для этого она, конечно, должна быть потолще чуть-чуть. Это бы меня порадовало. Чего-нибудь на баночке или на барьерчик, какие-нибудь изменения. Не знаю, они же вообще ничего не выкатили. Ни по самоцветам, ни по умениям, ни по уникам. Жду. С каждой лигой, с каждым апдейтом, но я думаю, что это, блин, конечно, ждать-то можно, а вот верить или надеяться только, да, и ждать. Уники, переработку уников, причем, ну, не столь количественную, как они сделали, 100 штук переработали, а по факту там опять из них сколько там, 10 или 20 максимум используемых, и то с натяжкой и с оговорками. Вот если бы они что-то с этим делали, ну просто даже, не знаю, ну это во всех играх, не во всех, наверное, я не во все-то не играл, конечно, во многих играх вот эти уники теряют свою ценность. Сейчас вот побегал я на МФ, ну там уников просто, я говорю, выключаешь фильтр, там с включенным-то максимальным фильтром иной раз по 10-20 уников валяется на экране. Это при том, что это только те, что видно. Если его выключить, там за карту выпадает, я даже не знаю, надо посчитать как для прикола. Сколько их там, 100-200 за карту выпадает. А никакой, ну, не то, что даже материальной выгоды, что типа их собрать, продать, ну, во-первых, это нереально, да, потому что ты не унесешь. Продавать их тоже там по 2, по 3 хаоса, но это тоже, во-первых, их столько не надо, во-вторых, ну, в общем, с этим бы вот что-то сделать. Ну, вся, вот основная, да, беда, это, конечно, обилие дропа и бесполезного дропа. Как бы количество перевести в качество, вот это такой очень вопрос в массах часто встречающийся, я его целиком поддерживаю. Вот это бы, конечно, да, я все время про Евку вспоминаю в качестве сравнения с сложностью игр. Я как раз часто в Евку-то и пошел вспоминать, было 5 лет там не был. Вот. Там, кстати, вернули, точнее не вернули, а сделали возможность играть бесплатно, если кто. Раньше она только платная была, сейчас можно бесплатно гамать, если кто хочет. Вот, и там я все время его приводил в пример как сложной игры. Там PoE рядом не стояло. Там мало того, что все те же, грубо говоря, сложности с билдом, там миллион билдов, Так там еще и механик тоже куча. Ну, в общем, сложнее PoE еще. Плюс живая абсолютно реальная экономика. С налогами, с прочим. С перевозками. Раз еще, наверное, в 5 сложнее, чем PoE игра. Вот. Но там есть очень хороший принцип, который разработчики, это я к чему все говорю, просто так для сравнения и понимания. Там есть очень хороший принцип, который разработчики озвучивают и всегда придерживаются. Чем опаснее, тем выгоднее. То есть, если ты живешь в каких-то там безопасных системах, мирах, у тебя прибыль маленькая. Начинаешь уходить в опасные места, у тебя растет прибыль. Уходишь там вообще в дебри какие-то, где тебя могут убить просто в каждую минуту, у тебя прибыль там 10-кратно растет. Ну, перенося на PoE, это можно как бы мазать карту, грубо говоря, да? А у нас получается, что ты мажешь карту на максимум, получаешь там 10 диванов в час. Мажешь ее алхимкой и бежишь вперед, получаешь там 5 диванов в час. Да, разница как будто бы 2 конца, ну, в смысле 2 раза, но сложность вообще просто никак не сравнимая. Поэтому... Леонид, нет, лига пока не стартует, пока анонс. Лига стартует 7 числа. Кажется, 7, если я правильно помню. Поэтому вот это бы исправить как-то бы... С другой стороны, в PoE есть определенный баланс по прибыли. Здесь тоже. Но он, конечно, слабоват. Слабоват. Но учитывая то, что... Ладно, поехали. Лысый на связи. Так, все. Здорово.
Thanks for joining us for today's live stream as we unveil Path of Exile Crucible, which launches on April 7th on PC and Mac and on April 12th on console. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Sphinx wings. Speaking of live streams, this is our last dedicated Path of Exile 1 announcement stream for around 6 months. That's because our 322 expansion announcement will occur during the ExileCon live stream in late July. Set yourself a reminder to tune in because we'll also be unveiling massive amounts of information about Path of Exile 2, including revealing the date that its beta will start. Okay, back to today's live stream. Here's what you can expect. We'll start with a trailer for Crucible, followed by a deep dive on the League itself. Then we'll cover this expansion's endgame improvements, including the introduction of Atlas gateways and revamps to both Breach and Abyss leagues. We'll discuss changes to Path of Exile's balance metagame, including changes to the passive skill tree, its masteries, an overhaul of the Saboteur and Pathfinder Ascendancy classes, 9 powerful new Val skills, and some of the new unique items you can build around. After that, we'll cover improvements to the Ruthless game mode and the League launch boss kill event, before diving into the new Supporter Pack series. The livestream will then conclude with a Q&A session between Ziggy D and me, where we'll answer questions from Twitch chat. After the livestream, we'll drop the full patch notes.
Дроп.
Let's get started with the trailer for Path of Exile Crucible.
Давайте. Так лучше, Паш.
Hail, one of many. Eons ago, my kind walked the molten surface of this world. Now, we seek a champion. You must endure the heat of the Crucible. To forge weapons unlike any Raycast has ever seen. Take up the power of the Titans and bring obliteration.
В общем, короче, механика, как в этом... Что там новое-то вышло? Господи, вылетело из головы-то.
In Path of Exile Crucible, you'll learn about an ancient race of titans who once shaped the primordial surface of Rayclust. In this league, you will earn the ability to forge their power onto your weapons. And what form does that power take? In an iconically Path of Exile way, it's the ability to imbue your weapons with their own passive skill trees. These Crucible trees can have quite an impact on your character build. For example, in addition to the regular mods on this bow, its Crucible tree grants additional physical damage, physical to chaos conversion, the Master Fletcher notable passive, improved grace effect, and level 10 lesser multiple projectiles. While this is certainly a decent tree to get, it's not even the maximum depth and could be even more optimized for your build. In order to forge these powerful trees onto your weapons, you'll need to complete Crucible encounters. There's one in each area. Each encounter takes place at a Crucible forge. As you approach the forge, you'll have the choice of which of your equipped weapons you want to focus on. This can include ones on your alternate weapon swap if you want to improve one you're not currently using. After selecting a weapon, you channel it at the Crucible forge to spawn monsters. The longer you channel for, the more dangerous and rewarding the encounter becomes. As you spawn additional monsters, they combine together to create larger and more fearsome foes that grant even more experience for your Crucible passive tree. Being able to ramp up the difficulty of the encounters is a double-edged sword. While it gives you the opportunity to make rapid progress on your Crucible weapon crafting projects, it comes with significant risk to your character. It's easy to accidentally overwhelm yourself and make an encounter that is too dangerous. Channel carefully and adapt to what your character is capable of. When you first find a weapon, it doesn't have a Crucible tree unlocked. Channeling that weapon at Crucible encounters will unlock and reveal its tree, as well as allocating the first skill. You can only allocate one skill at each tree depth, so you'll need to decide which path through the tree is best for your build. As you get deeper into a tree, more and more experience is required to unlock skills. The final depths can take quite an investment and can only be found rarely on endgame items, but also have some of the most powerful properties. For example, this wand has 2 depth 5 skills to choose from. One of them allows all damage from your Freezing Pulse and Eye of Winter skills to poison, and the other allows various brands to be attached to your Summoned Reaper. There are many such modifiers to skills that will enable very interesting build combinations. In addition to all types of weapons, shields can also be empowered with their own Crucible trees. Here's a relatively simple low-level example. It gets a bit crazier as you approach the endgame. Speaking of the endgame, in endgame Crucible encounters you'll occasionally find igneous geodes, currency items that can be cracked open to reveal a primeval remnant. This is a map-like item that grants access to the Forge of the Titans, the culmination of your Crucible journey. These primeval remnants always generate as rare items. Half of their mods are upsides and half are downsides. The upsides generally increase the rewards of the area or add special crafting options. For example, causing monsters to drop divination cards or magmatic ore, a form of tradable itemized Crucible tree experience. The downsides are quite punitive compared to most endgame maps. Ideally, you want to find a primeval remnant that is really rewarding upsides alongside downsides you can handle. If you don't think you'll survive a visit to the Forge of the Titans, trade the remnant away to someone else and gamble on cracking open another geode. If you survive and manage to reach the end of the area, you'll find the aforementioned forge, which allows you to merge Crucible trees on 2 items together. The way this process works is that you provide 2 items of the same class. For example, a pair of bows, a pair of shields, or a pair of one-hand axes. One of these items will be melted down and applied to the other, which will keep its regular properties. Their Crucible trees will be merged together in an unpredictable way, taking elements of each one. This is a little reminiscent of how recombinators applied to item mods, taking parts of each Crucible tree and merging them together, as well as randomly upgrading, downgrading, or mutating skills on the resultant tree. While this process can create some really powerful trees if you get skills you wanted from both items, it can also completely wreck your precious trees, so take care choosing which you risk combining.
Круто.
Also, like recombinators, there are ways to manipulate the system to improve your odds at getting certain outcomes. For example, any skills that have been allocated are more likely to show up in the resultant Crucible tree. By default, you can only add Crucible trees to non-unique items, but it's possible to get a mod on the Forge of the Titans map that allows you to imbue a unique item with a Crucible tree, which can then be leveled up via regular Crucible encounters. To combine Crucible trees on unique items together, you'll want to find a crystalline geode and crack it open to reveal the secret higher level version of the Forge of the Titans. I probably shouldn't say too much about it, but it will let you do some interesting things with Crucible trees. There's an important thing to note about Crucible trees on unique weapons. In addition to being much harder to unlock, there's a special rule about how they can be combined. A unique weapon must be combined with another copy of the same unique weapon to merge their trees together. Because this destroys one copy, getting a good Crucible tree on a unique weapon makes it insanely valuable. It may also raise the trade value of all unique weapons by quite a lot, as players sacrifice them trying to create perfect Crucible trees. Occasionally, you'll find a Crucible passive skill tree with a special skill that indicates that the item will sell to vendors for a specific item in addition to its regular sale price. These vendor skills usually occur relatively deeply in the tree, so take some effort to allocate, but usually don't block skill choices you'd make when leveling the item up for use. The presence of these skills presents you with an interesting choice about whether you want to use the item or sell it to a vendor, and whether you want to spend your Crucible experience either revealing new trees to hunt for good skills, leveling up items to use, or leveling up items to sell. Crucible also features its own unique items you can earn. For example, El Abin's Visage, a unique helmet, is special in that it's the only armor piece other than shields that can receive Crucible passive skill trees. Wearing it allows you to double down on certain properties that are only available through these trees. There are several other unique items exclusive to Crucible for you to discover in this league. Crucible is a dual combat crafting league with a focus on encounter difficulty scaling and deep weapon customization with a power level that we have never seen before. Without a doubt, some of Path of Exile's most powerful weapons will be forged in Crucible. We can't wait to see what you manage to create. Like all recent Path of Exile expansions, Crucible includes a lot of changes with the goal of improving Path of Exile's endgame. One area we wanted to address was mobility on the Atlas passive tree. Often, you'll find yourself in a situation where you want to specialize in leagues that are on entirely different sides of the Atlas tree. Or maybe you want to focus on the type of altar that isn't near the leagues you have picked. To solve this, Path of Exile Crucible introduces Atlas Gateways. These are nodes that you can allocate on the Atlas tree that allow instant travel between two locations. There are 3 pairs of gateways, each allowing travel from the left side of the tree to the right side or vice versa. Each end of the gateway consumes 1 Atlas skill point to allocate, but will potentially save you large amounts of travel points. In this expansion, we're targeting a couple of endgame leagues that have fallen behind other leagues on the Atlas tree. Let's start with Breach. In the live version of Path of Exile, there are 5 tiers of Breachstone. In Path of Exile Crucible, we're raising the area levels of Breachstones to a much higher baseline level. 81 for elemental ones, 82 for physical, and 83 for chaos. Now that the regular Breachstones are much higher level, we have retired charged, enriched, and pure Breachstones. They will be converted to regular ones. We have also changed how flawless Breachstones are acquired. Previously, you could only get them from Maven invitations, but we prefer access to the hardest Breach content to actually come from playing Breach. Now there are 2 ways to get flawless Breachstones, through blessings, which are now rarer as a result, and through a skill on the Atlas tree. We've also improved the pacing of Breach encounters. Previously, Breaches felt pretty good early on, but quickly tapered off in density to the point where you wanted to abandon the Breach because it just felt like not enough monsters were spawning. Our changes now keep Breaches feeling dense throughout, leaning more on the side of it feeling overwhelming towards the end of the Breach. We have also reduced the duration of Breaches so there is constant monster pressure and you can get on with your mapping sooner. There are a whole bunch of other Breach changes that you can read about in the patch notes, such as changes to the Betrayal Research Safehouse, Breach Scarabs, Breach Stones from Kirik missions, the Breach Harvest crafting option, the Fragment Stash tab, Divination cards, Breach unique items, Atlas passives, and so on. We're also revamping Abyss in a similar way. Abyssal Depths now always contain an Abyssal Lich. Previously, the prevailing gameplay was to check the loading screen art of an Abyssal Depths to see if it contained a Lich, and bail out if it didn't. Now, the depths always contain a Lich, removing the need for this step. While the rate of encountering Abyssal Liches is unchanged, Abyssal Depths are rarer than before. However, Abysses now have a chance to spawn a Stygian Spire in place of their reward chest, which will drop all of the jewels and other items you'd normally receive, as well as a Stygian Vice. In addition, you're guaranteed to always get a 4-hole Abyss alongside your Abyssal Depths. Previously, Abyssal Depths could only spawn immediately after a single Abyssal hole, which prevented you from getting full value from the Abyss. The Lightless Legion notable passive has been replaced with a new skill which grants Stygian Spires in your maps drop items with +1 to item level. This is intended to allow players to continue to be able to obtain item level 86 Stygian Vices and other base types as a reward for specializing in Abyss. The small passives leading up to this notable passive have also been replaced. We've done a balance pass on Abyssal Lich encounters to make them more appropriately difficult relative to the current standard of endgame encounters. Abyss uniques have had some balance attention also, and the details are in the patch notes. Overall, these changes should ensure you can play a wider variety of leagues in the endgame, both through being able to access them more easily and because Breach and Abyss now feel far more modern and competitive with other popular league content. A big goal of the Crucible expansion is to provide a lot of new ways to build characters, and to breathe new life into older builds. To achieve this, we're doing two things. Firstly, we have created many more interesting options for one of Path of Exile's core build systems, the passive skill tree, by overhauling many of its masteries. Secondly, we have revamped two specific Ascendancy classes. As we reviewed the masteries on Path of Exile's passive skill tree, we realized that a lot of the choices were rather bland and could be a lot more exciting. We went through the masteries one by one and tried to come up with as many interesting stats as we could, ignoring what was currently there. Once we had a short list of high quality stats, we added in the existing ones that used to be on each mastery and picked the 6 best. All of the leftover ones have been saved for later or used in places like unique items. This process was performed on approximately half of the masteries on the tree, initially targeting the ones that needed the attention the most. Previously, some masteries only had 4 options, so we've tried to increase as many as possible to 6 options. We've also added a couple of new mastery types that we felt were missing. Let's look at an example, the life mastery choices. You can see some of the interesting new options, such as the ability to manipulate your low life and full life thresholds, which allows you to more effectively use the damage while on full life support gem and many unique items. Getting a large increase to maximum life when you have no life on your body armor not only works really well with a whole lot of unique items, but also opens up new prefix composition options for rare body armors. Here you can see the armor and energy shield mastery has more options available than before. The other thing we focused on with this one is tying the mechanics together better. Instead of some being about armor and some being about energy shield, we've tried to make sure each really emphasizes having both armor and energy shield. On the Leech Mastery, we've combined the 3 increased life mana and energy shield recovery stats into one choice that affects all of them. The space we've freed up has been used to add some powerful new options, such as a portion of your Leech applying instantly. The Spell Suppression Mastery also has many interesting options. Your chance to suppress spell damage becoming lucky is extremely useful before you've optimized your gear and haven't reached 100% yet. The third option rewards you for stacking more than 100% spell suppression, which previously had few benefits. Now it's something you can plan your itemization around. While looking at masteries, we noted that there were some mechanics that didn't have enough passive tree support, so we decided to add some more options and passive skill choices for those mechanics. We also wanted to grant more access to certain types of masteries in specific parts of the passive skill tree. For example, in order to allow more access to the attack mastery, we've added an attack cluster by the Templar and one between the Ranger and Shadow. We wanted to create more access to other forms of recovery such as regen and recoup, so we've added some new passive skill clusters. Note that there is now a new mastery called Recovery. We've also added more capacity for investment in certain mechanics that we felt could be improved, such as link skills, stun mitigation, and marks. These mastery improvements and passive tree changes are just some of the ones introduced in Path of Exile Crucible. We look forward to your feedback on the rest when you check out the passive skill tree next week. While going through Ascendancy classes, we identified 2 that needed work, the Saboteur and the Pathfinder. Both have been significantly changed in Path of Exile Crucible. These changes reinforce their respective identities while adding some new options to build around. The Saboteur is definitely the Ascendancy class most aligned with traps and mines, but the old version of the Saboteur made it difficult to play anything but traps or mines. The new version has more builds available, including a whole new specialization, Triggers. There are 2 notable passives that help with this. Like Clockwork grants you the increased cooldown recovery rate stat, which is a pretty rare one. This is great for triggered spells as it indirectly increases their damage. This notable also makes your enemies have longer cooldowns, which can be useful in certain boss fights, for example causing the Maven's memory game to occur less often. The Perfect Crime notable passive summons 2 trigger bots, which override the location of where a triggered spell is being cast, and instead causes it to trigger twice, once from each of their locations. The layout for the Saboteur's Trap and Mine Ascendancy passives has changed, so that there aren't separate 4-pointers for traps and mines. Now each one has a 2-pointer that is connected to the same shared 4-pointer. We have also completely reworked Bomb Specialist to be specifically tied to area damage, so it's a slightly more general skill. It both gives you some area damage as well as some defense against incoming area damage against you. The Pathfinder has been overdue for some attention, especially with recent features such as concoction skills that she could get the ability to specialize in. We also wanted the Flask-themed Ascendancy to have a proactive way of improving Life Flask usage. Master Distiller allows you to turn most of your skills into concoction-like effects. Master Surgeon now effectively gives all of your Life Flasks the Enduring effect, previously only found on Mana Flasks. Finally, both of the major Flask-themed branches now have some form of Flask Charge recovery. There are other improvements to the Pathfinder Ascendancy, such as Nature's Reprisal, now interacting with Wither to improve all forms of your Chaos damage, rather than just attack forms of it. Check out the full details in the patch notes that we'll be posting after the livestream. Path of Exile Crucible introduces 9 new Val skills. Last expansion, there was an emphasis on melee Val skills. In Crucible, we're making sure that many other types of builds get new skills to build around. Val skills let us introduce quite powerful effects that we couldn't normally give to a regular skill that can be used constantly. They also implicitly act as a buff to the underlying skill. Val Absolution upgrades one of your Sentinels of Absolution into an Apparition of Innocence. You can only have one apparition at once, but just check out these massive AoE skills it uses. Val Arctic Armor instantly encases you in ice, preventing non-instant actions including movement, but granting massive damage reduction against hits. After a short duration, it also starts to regenerate your energy shield and mana at a fast rate. Both the damage reduction and regeneration last for a few seconds, or until you have been hit 3 times. It cannot be manually cancelled. Because this skill is instant, it's a great emergency button against dangerous boss slams. It also makes you count as being frozen, despite Arctic Armor normally making you freeze immune. Having another way to self-freeze may be of interest to a few mad scientist build creators in the community. Val Lightning Arrow fires a barrage of piercing projectiles that cause lightning to strike nearby targets whenever they hit an enemy. After a short amount of time, or when they collide with terrain, their arrows randomly change direction and continue flying. This occurs a number of times before the arrows expire. Each arrow can hit the same target once per redirect. Because the arrows travel for a set time before redirecting, rather than a set distance, projectile speed modifiers affect the distance traveled. High projectile speed lets you clear out huge areas with them, while reducing your projectile speed increases the chance of them hitting the same target multiple times. With very low projectile speed, the skill can hit a single target 20 plus times. Val Reap conjures a ring of scythes that deal damage to all enemies in a circular area. The scythes leave behind a pool of blood that deals heavy physical damage over time to enemies standing in it, and for a short duration after they leave it. Val Reap instantly grants a large number of the blood charges used by normal Reap on use, as well as temporarily higher maximum blood charge capacity, substantially powering up the regular version of the skill. Path of Exile Crucible introduces 5 other Val skills we'll reveal over the next week: Val Animate Weapon, Val Domination, Val Ice Shot, Val Rejuvenation Totem, and Val Firestorm. This expansion also introduces more than 10 new unique items. There are 3 in particular I'd like to show you today. Blood Price is a unique helmet that has a new effect, reserving enemy maximum life. This does exactly what it implies, causing nearby enemies to start at 92% maximum life. While this increases your clear speed against all enemies, it's especially useful against bosses. The helmet's drawback is that it reduces your maximum life, but provides decent life regeneration and block and stun recovery to counteract this. Tainted Pact is an amulet that causes chaos damage over time to heal you while you're leeching life. While the amulet provides a decent amount of life leech itself, it'll certainly require a few tricks to unlock its full potential. Widow Hail is a unique bow that is different from any other bow in Path of Exile. As a weapon, it does basically no base damage and doesn't grant any stats of its own, but it does dramatically increase the power of mods provided by your quiver. Needless to say, this could produce some pretty ridiculous outcomes with good rare or unique quivers. We'll reveal some of the other new uniques over the coming week. Ruthless is a game mode that we released alongside the Sanctum expansion late last year. It's designed around extreme item scarcity and is challenging because you're constantly behind the item power curve. So far it has found a very passionate audience of players who love how rewarding item drops feel in such an austere environment. We have some small improvements to Ruthless and Path of Exile Crucible. Firstly, Eternal Orbs are back in Ruthless. These are an extremely powerful currency item that allows you to imprint an item and restore it if you're unhappy with the result of crafting. We disabled these game-wide 7 years ago because they were far too powerful when combined with all of the different crafting options Path of Exile offered at the time. Ruthless does not have the base game's crafting feature set, so we have enabled Eternal Orbs to drop in Ruthless, albeit extremely rarely. Ruthless now has its own set of challenges to complete. Like the ones in early Path of Exile, there are a total of 8, and they're very difficult. Like we've done in the past, we're hosting a boss kill event at the start of the Crucible Challenge League. It'll be held in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found, and will require you to kill both the Uber Searing Exarch and the Uber Eater of Worlds, making it by far the hardest event we have ever run. The first place winner will get to work with our design team to add a new unique item to Path of Exile. They'll also receive a transferable Ultra VIP ticket to ExileCon in July. If they aren't able to attend or already have a ticket, then they are allowed to sell this one as they see fit. Second and third place finishers will receive a transferable VIP ticket to ExileCon that can also be sold at their discretion. If you'd like to enter the event, just create a character in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found on launch day. Best of luck to everyone. On the weekend of July 29 to 30 New Zealand time, which is July 28 to 29 for much of the rest of the world, we're going to be hosting ExileCon 2023 in Auckland, New Zealand. While tickets to the in-person event are very hard to get, we'll be streaming the entire event for free. At ExileCon, we'll reveal our latest updates on Path of Exile 2, Path of Exile Mobile, and the next Path of Exile 1 expansion. Make a note in your calendar, tell your friends, and don't miss it. The second day of the Path of Exile livestream culminates in a competitive race event between some of Path of Exile's best players. In order to select the 4 competitors, we're going to run qualifier events during the months of April and May. The winner of each event will receive a VIP ExileCon ticket, return flights to Auckland and accommodation, and will compete in the race event live on stage. All 4 qualifiers in the final event will be run on the 3.21 version of Path of Exile, which has received a fair amount of early game balance work that will change the racing meta quite a lot. You'll be able to read more in the patch notes. Once 3.21 releases next week, you'll be able to solve the new meta, practice hard, compete in the qualifier events, and hopefully win your place on stage in July. Alongside Path of Exile Crucible, we're introducing a few new types of microtransactions. An example I wanted to describe today is that of mannequins. These are hideout decorations that you can place to show off sets of microtransactions you have assembled. You can equip them with your spare micros and pose them in various ways. It's also possible to swap your entire outfit with a mannequin's one, which lets you easily store micro sets to be retrieved later. Other new microtransactions coming up include wrapping paper, which lets you gift wrap items to hand to other players, or even drop in town for random people to pick up. Today we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Lithomancer and Enchanter packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions. These packs are only available for the duration of the Crucible League, and will leave the store forever when it ends. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. The Lithomancer series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. The Tunnel Bear isn't just adorable, he will also take the place of the Crawler in Delves, lighting your surroundings and laying down cables. Apparently, this is what happens when your bear gets into a kilo of sulfite. Might explain what happened to Nico. The Ring of the Demon Slayer attempts to exorcise rare and unique demons when you hit them. The souls of defeated demons are banished to the depths below. The ancient stone of the Lithomancer's armor set crumbles when you take damage, revealing the crimson core inside. The stone reforms if you haven't taken damage recently. A sip from the ancestral granite flask causes a QIWI ancestor to appear and surround you in protective wards. The ancestral portal encases you in molten armor when you travel through it.
Talamoana, warrior.
The summoned QIWI ancestor rallies you to battle and honestly seems to have an unhealthy obsession with combat.
Go forth and conquer.
Ever want to practice running away from volatiles? The gunpowder foot attachment straps explosives to your legs, dispersing lit gunpowder behind you. Be careful, you can only outrun it for so long before it catches up. The Enchanter Pack series also has 6 exclusive microtransactions. The Parrot of Exile pet parrots your exile. We'll just let it speak for itself.
Непонятно для чего. Ну, то есть понятно, что денег поднять.
I need more mana. Mana!
Drinking from the bottled storm jade flask encases you in a surging tornado, churning up the ground in your wake. If you stand perfectly still while wearing the enchanted armor set, it will attract butterflies to flutter around you. Be careful not to disturb them. Sick of high-fiving giant purple appendages? The Ritualist's Breach Ring visually transforms breaches you find into occult summoning circles. The Enchanter's Crafting Bench replaces the normal crafting bench in your hideout with a suite of tools fit for a master artisan. The various crafting stations burst into life as you use them. If you've ever wanted to remind your character who's really in charge, the Puppeteer's back attachment has you covered. It truly is the sinister presence pulling the strings. These new packs are available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase. Purchases like these directly fund the ongoing development of Path of Exile 1 and 2. Meanwhile, the Forge and Gemling packs leave the store forever at the launch of the Crucible League, so now's your last chance to purchase them. Thank you for your continued support. We're about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. After that, we'll post the full patch notes for Path of Exile Crucible. As we approach release next week, our community team will post Crucible's challenges, information on how to update your item filters, more skill gem details, and information on how to prepare for Crucible's launch. On release weekend, we expect to launch the new mystery box and this season's Kerrick's Vault Pass, which can be purchased with points and has a new free track available. Thanks for joining the stream today and checking out Path of Exile Crucible. We can't wait to forge some powerful weapons with you next week. The Q&A will start shortly, so please get your questions ready.
И вы чё? Выдумывали-то? Я тоже вот эти зикиди не люблю. Там такие вопросы сомнительные. Из всего там получаса или часа, сколько мы там. В общем, пару вопросов, дай бог. Ну чё, по-моему, ну правда, блин, Каландра тоже по анонсу была вау лига, а в итоге полное разочарование, особенно большинства. Не знаю, так, конечно, на первый взгляд крутенько. Не знаю только, что с Абисом они сделали. Не знаю. Да знаешь, что значит норм. Непонятно, насколько оно норм. Так, ну я даже не знаю. Так, а чё мне крылья-то дали? Нет, а когда крылья дадут? Прикольная ошибка при получении подарка. Все, меня без крыльев оставили. Это рядом. О, как народ ливает активно. Никто не хочет смотреть зики. $100 000 отвалилось. Посмотрим. Ну, конечно, переработали что-то они там много всего. Но нужны, конечно, почнут. Это все. Это все так себе. История. Да, ну точно. 100 000 отвалилось. Увидел я эту циферку. Смотрел. Сначала засомневался, а потом точно. Так, что там пишут? Вопрос. Ничего там не прочитаешь так быстро. А дерево они опять выкатят за день. До релиза или когда они там его выкатывают? Что одно дерево, что второе, короче. Как мне, блин, стартер-то ковырять? Амулет они, конечно, новый сделали. Интересный, но амулету и так там, блин, такой популярный слот. Ничего туда не воткнешь. Не, Вигу я тоже не хочу слушать, если честно. Ну что? Так, а почнут-то он когда сказал? После зимы, да? Даже и не включают его. Они тоже не хотят с ним общаться. Да это да, завтра можно. Послезавтра почитать оно. Вообще никоим образом не повлияет на происходящее. О! Прочихался. Где звук-то, алё?
G'day, exiles. Ziggity here. Welcome back. I'm joined here once again by Chris Wilson. How you going this morning, Chris?
Going well, thanks. Thanks for hosting.
That was a pretty spicy, hot reveal stream. The final one before ExileCon and the last reveal apart from ExileCon's reveal for PoE 1 potentially?
Yeah, well, we'll be having basically during the keynote for ExileCon, obviously, we'll be dumping all the juicy Path of Exile 2 info, but after that, we'll have essentially the Path of Exile 1 322 expansion livestream taking place from the main stage there.
The ending of an era. It's kind of bittersweet. A decade of Path of Exile action at this point coming to a close, but moving into Path of Exile 2, obviously very exciting. So we won't be probing into that too much here because that is for ExileCon. So for now, let's talk a bit about Crucible. Has there been any reference to Titans and this very early stage of Rayclestian history before now, or is this kind of new ground that you folks are exploring this time around?
We like to come up with a mixture of taking something that's referenced and then expanding on it. And I don't want to spoil too much of the investigation of where.
Зиговалим смотреть так себе. Давай, Паш, спокойной ночи. Завтра тоже почитаю. Не хочу я их слушать, они еще бубнят так противно. Ладно, всех рад был видеть. Будем думать, что из этого теперь выковыривать. Ну, вроде как лучника не сломали, даже скорее усилили. Теперь он же пользуется не уникальным оружием, значит, можно будет ему что-нибудь накрутить. Будем думать, ждем патчноуты. Так что до встречи на трансляциях. Всем спасибо. Пока-пока.